Jason had always liked quiet. He wasn't the kind of guy who looked for drama or trouble. He worked a regular job, came home to his small suburban house, and enjoyed weekends by the pool with a cold drink and some good music. Life was simple, and he liked it that way. He lived in a neighborhood called Pine Ridge Estates. It was the kind of place where people knew their neighbors, but not too well. Everyone kept to themselves most of the time. The houses were neat, the lawns were trimmed, and every street had that clean cookie-cutter look you often see in old family movies. Pine Ridge had one rule everyone had to follow. They were part of the HOA, Homeowners Association. That meant there were certain things you couldn't do without permission, like painting your front door bright red, putting up a fence taller than 4 feet, or parking a boat on your driveway. Most people didn't mind. It kept things looking nice and helped maintain property values. Jason had been living there for about 3 years and never had any issues with the HOA. He followed the rules, paid his fees on time, and even waved at the HOA president once in a while when they passed each other on the sidewalk. Things were peaceful, or so he thought. Then Barbara moved in. She bought the house 2 doors down from Jason. It was a nice place, white siding with black shutters and a perfectly green lawn. She arrived in a shiny new SUV wearing sunglasses and talking loudly on her phone. Even from across the yard, Jason could hear her voice, sharp, fast, and full of attitude. At first, she seemed like just another neighbor, maybe a little loud, maybe a little bossy, but nothing unusual. Then slowly, things started to change. Barbara joined the HOA board within weeks of moving in. No one really saw it coming. She wasn't the type people expected to volunteer for something like that, but there she was, suddenly handing out notices, taking photos of people's yards, and knocking on doors with a clipboard and a frown. It started small. A neighbor got a letter because their mailbox was dusty. Another got fined for leaving a garden gnome near the sidewalk. People laughed it off at first. "She's just trying to make an impression," they said. But then the fines got bigger, and the complaints got louder. Jason stayed out of it. He kept his head down, made sure his grass was cut, and avoided eye contact whenever Barbara walked by. He figured if he didn't cause any problems, none would come his way. But Barbara wasn't the kind of person who liked being ignored. One hot Saturday morning, Jason stepped outside to enjoy the sun and check on his pool. It was his favorite part of the house. He had spent months getting it just right. Clean tiles, soft lighting, and a floating speaker that played chill music underwater. It was his escape, his little piece of peace. But when he opened the gate to the backyard, something felt off. The water looked weird. Instead of the usual clear blue, it had a strange tint. Not quite green, not quite purple. More like someone had spilled food coloring into it. Jason walked closer, squinting at the surface. There were streaks, lines of color swirling through the water like paint. "What the?" he muttered. He grabbed a net and skimmed the top. The moment he pulled it back, he saw it. Bits of thick, sticky stuff clinging to the mesh. Paint chips, real ones. His stomach dropped. Someone had dumped paint into his pool. Jason ran inside and grabbed his phone. He checked the security camera app connected to the system he'd installed after a few break-ins happened nearby last year. He rarely used it. He wasn't paranoid. But now he was glad he had. He scrolled back through the footage from the night before. Around 2 a.m., someone showed up on the screen. A woman, tall, wearing dark clothes, and carrying something heavy in both hands. She walked straight toward the pool, looked around nervously, then poured whatever was in the containers into the water. Within seconds, the surface began to swirl with color. Jason zoomed in. It was Barbara. There was no mistaking that curly hair, those high heels, or that angry stance she always had when she was giving someone a lecture about their flower beds. He watched the whole thing again, then a third time just to be sure. His hands shook as he sat down. This wasn't a mistake, this wasn't an accident. Someone had vandalized his property, on purpose. He tried to think of reasons why she would do it. Had he done something to upset her? Ignored her at the mailbox? Left his trash bin out too early? Nothing. came to mind. Still, there she was on video dumping paint into his pool like it was nothing. Jason felt a mix of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. He wanted to yell, to knock on her door and demand answers, but he knew that wouldn't help. If anything, it might make things worse. Instead, he did what any reasonable person would do. He saved the footage, printed screenshots, and made a list of everything he needed to do next. First step, talk to the HOA. He sent them an email with the evidence attached and asked for a meeting. He explained what happened and gave them a chance to handle it the right way, but the response wasn't what he expected. They replied saying they'd look into it, but days passed with no action. Barbara denied everything. She claimed the video was fake, said Jason. Must have edited it himself to get attention or start trouble. Some people believed her, others weren't so sure. Jason realized something. This wasn't just about his pool anymore. It was about standing up for himself, about proving that someone couldn't just ruin someone else's life and get away with it. And if the HOA wouldn't help, he'd have to find another way. So he decided to go to the police, not just because of the mess in his pool, not just because of the money it would cost to fix it, but because someone had broken the law and needed to face the consequences, even if that someone was a powerful HOA member named Barbara. Jason didn't waste any time. The next morning, he printed out all the video stills and made a copy of the full footage on a USB drive. He packed up his laptop, grabbed his notes, and drove straight to the police station. It was quiet inside when he walked in. A few people sat on chairs along the wall, waiting for their turn. Jason approached the front desk where a tall officer with a calm face greeted him. "I need to report something," Jason said. The officer asked what happened, and Jason told the whole story, from Barbara's behavior in the HOA to the sudden paint in his pool, to the video that clearly showed her doing it. The officer listened carefully, then called over a detective who handled property crimes. After reviewing the evidence, the detective looked at Jason and nodded. "This looks like vandalism," he said. "We'll open a case." Jason felt a small wave of relief. At least someone believed him. But things didn't move as fast as he hoped. The police had to contact Barbara, question her, and gather more information. She lawyered up right away and denied everything. Said she was home sleeping the night it happened. Said Jason must have faked the video or hired someone to make it look like her. She even claimed it was Jason who put the paint in his own pool to get attention, or maybe even to sue the HOA. It was wild. But somehow, people started believing. Her neighbors who used to say hi to Jason now gave him weird looks. Some stayed quiet. Others whispered behind his back. "She's got money. She's got power," one neighbor told Jason quietly. "Be careful." Jason wasn't scared, but he was frustrated. He went back to the HOA board and tried again, showing them the police report. They promised to look into it but did nothing. One member even suggested Jason drop it before things got worse. That only made him more determined. So, he decided to take the story public. He posted the video online, without editing, just the raw footage, and wrote a short description of what happened. Within hours, people started commenting. Some were angry. "Why is she getting away with this? This is pure spite. Hope he sues. HOA gone wild." Others were supportive. "Good for you for standing up for yourself. If this doesn't go to court, something's wrong." Local news picked it up the next day. A reporter reached out asking if Jason would speak on camera. He agreed. When the story aired, it spread fast. Barbara became known as the HOA Karen who dumped paint in a man's pool. People laughed at first, but then they got mad. This wasn't just about a prank. It was about abuse of power, harassment, and how some people use rules to bully others. More neighbors came forward. One woman shared how Barbara once threatened to fine her for drying laundry outside. Another man said she took photos of his dog and sent them to the HOA, claiming the pet was too loud and needed to be muzzled. Suddenly, Barbara wasn't just a strict HOA member. She was a problem. Even the HOA couldn't ignore it anymore. They held an emergency meeting. Jason wasn't invited, but he heard the result soon after. Barbara was suspended from the board pending further investigation. Still, She refused to admit guilt. Instead, she doubled down. Her lawyer filed a statement saying Jason was trying to damage her reputation and that she was being unfairly targeted. She even tried to claim emotional distress from the media attention. Jason rolled his eyes. "This isn't about me hurting her feelings," he said in an interview. "This is about someone breaking into my yard, ruining my property, and thinking she can get away with it because she's on the HOA." The community was divided. Some stood by Jason. Others thought he was making too big a deal out of paint in a pool. But Jason knew better. He had the footage. He had witnesses. And now, thanks to the growing attention, he had support. Still, legal action was slow. The police case was moving through the system, but there was no trial date yet. Jason wanted justice, not just for himself, but for everyone who'd ever been pushed around by someone with authority. Then, one afternoon, Barbara confronted him. She showed up at his house unannounced. Her face was red, her voice sharp. "You think this is funny?" She snapped through the open window of his car. "You ruined my life." Jason stepped out calmly. "I didn't ruin anything," he said. "I just showed everyone what you did." She glared at him, then stormed off. Jason watched her go, heart pounding. He knew she wasn't done, but neither was he. Later that week, the detective called. "We're moving forward with charges," he said. "Vandalism, trespassing, and destruction of private property." Jason felt a weight lift off his chest. Finally, things were going his way. Barbara, however, didn't seem worried. Or maybe she was just good at hiding it. She kept posting online, defending herself, calling Jason a liar and a troublemaker. But fewer people were buying it now. More stories came out. Other homeowners in different neighborhoods shared similar experiences with HOA members who abused their power. Jason's story wasn't unique. It was part of a bigger issue. And now, people were paying attention. Jason began speaking out more. He talked to local groups about homeowner rights. He gave interviews. He even helped other people fight unfair fines and HOA decisions, all because of a little piece he was trying to protect. His pool was still dirty. The water hadn't been cleaned yet, but he knew that would come soon enough. Now, he had a chance to clean up something bigger. Justice. The courtroom was quiet when Jason walked in. A few people sat in the back rows, some reporters, a couple neighbors who had been following the case, and Barbara's lawyer, already flipping through papers with a serious look. Jason took his seat, next to his own attorney, a calm man in his 40s named Mr. Patel. He had handled property cases before and had assured Jason that they had a strong case. Barbara sat on the other side of the room. She wore a sharp black suit and kept her arms crossed like she wasn't worried at all. But Jason could see it in her eyes. She knew this wasn't going to be easy for her. The judge entered, and everyone stood. After a short greeting, the trial began. The prosecution started by showing the security footage again. The video played on a large screen in the courtroom. Everyone watched as Barbara appeared on camera late at night, walking toward Jason's pool with 2 paint cans in hand. She looked around nervously before pouring them into the water. Gasps came from some members of the audience. Others just shook their heads. Mr. Patel pointed out details, the timestamp, the way Barbara moved, how she matched the description from neighbors who had seen her in the neighborhood late at night. Then came the expert testimony. A local pool maintenance specialist explained how much damage the paint caused. "It clogged the filters," he said, "ruined the chemical balance completely. The only way to fix it was to drain the whole pool, clean every surface, and refill it." He also mentioned the cost, nearly $4,000 just for cleaning. That didn't include replacing damaged equipment or lost use of the pool during repairs. Next, a digital forensics expert confirmed that the video had not been edited or altered in any way. Jason's phone records also showed no signs of tampering. The footage was real. Then it was Barbara's turn to defend herself. Her lawyer stood up and tried to argue that Barbara had no reason to do something like this. He called it an overreaction to a small issue and suggested that maybe someone else had done it and simply looked like Barbara. But the judge wasn't impressed. "Is there any evidence that supports this theory?" the judge asked. "No," the lawyer admitted, but we believe there's reasonable doubt. The judge nodded but made it clear. There was more than enough proof to show Barbara was responsible. After hours of arguments, the jury went to decide the verdict. Everyone waited. Jason felt nervous even though he knew they had solid proof. Justice didn't always move fast, and sometimes people found ways to twist the truth. But this time, it seemed different. Less than 2 hours later, the jury returned. The judge asked for the decision. We find the defendant guilty of criminal mischief, trespassing, and destruction of private property. A wave of relief washed over Jason. Barbara's face turned red. She whispered something to her lawyer and stormed out of the courtroom without waiting for sentencing. The judge set the punishment for the next week. In the meantime, Jason was told to prepare a statement about how this affected him personally. That night, he sat at his kitchen table with a notebook and pen, trying to put his thoughts together. He wrote about how hard he worked to keep his home peaceful, how he never wanted a fight, just to enjoy his life without trouble, how the attack on his pool felt like more than just property damage. It was a violation of his space, his peace, and his trust in the community. He described how people started looking at him differently after Barbara accused him of lying, how he became known as the guy who made a big deal out of nothing. And then he talked about what it meant to stand up for himself. I didn't want to go through all this, he wrote. But I did it because I believed that if someone breaks the law, they should have to face the consequences. No one should feel like they can hurt another person and get away with it just because they hold a position of power. When the day of sentencing arrived, Jason read his statement aloud in court. There wasn't a sound in the room when he finished. Barbara sat quietly now, her usual confidence gone. Her lawyer looked tired. The judge listened carefully, then gave the final ruling. Barbara was ordered to pay for the full cost of cleaning the pool, plus damages for emotional distress and legal fees. In total, it came out to nearly $7,000. She was also placed on probation for 1 year and banned from serving on the HOA board ever again. As the judge closed the case, Jason felt something shift inside him. It wasn't just about the money. It wasn't even about winning. It was about proving that regular people could stand up against abuse of power and win. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Jason with cameras and microphones. How does it feel to finally get justice? One asked. Jason smiled. Feels good, but more than anything, I hope this helps others know they're not alone. If someone tries to push you around, don't stay quiet. Speak up. His story continued to make headlines. Local TV stations ran follow-up stories. Online, people shared his message far beyond Pine Ridge Estates. Some homeowners reached out to ask for advice on dealing with unfair HOA rules. Others sent donations to help cover his costs. Barbara, meanwhile, avoided the spotlight. She didn't respond to interview requests. Soon after the trial, she put her house up for sale. Neighbors who once feared speaking out now felt empowered. Some even formed a group to review HOA policies and ensure fair treatment for everyone. Jason wasn't just a homeowner anymore. He was a voice for others. And while his pool still needed some final touches before it was ready for swimming again, he knew one thing for sure: justice had been served. Now it was time to enjoy the peace he fought so hard for. Jason's pool was finally clean again. The water sparkled under the sun like it used to. He stood at the edge looking down at the clear blue surface, smiling a little to himself. It had taken weeks, but now it was back to how it was before. Barbara ruined it. He dropped a small inflatable float into the water and sat on a lounge chair nearby, soaking up the sun. For the first time in a long while, he felt calm. But even though the pool was fixed, life in Pine Ridge Estates hadn't gone completely back to normal. Barbara was gone. A few days after the trial, her house went up for sale. Within 2 weeks, it was sold. No goodbye parties, no final wave from the sidewalk. Just one day she was there, and the next, she wasn't. Neighbors whispered about it, of course. Some said she couldn't handle the shame. Others thought she just wanted to start fresh somewhere else where no one knew her name or her reputation. Whatever the reason, Jason didn't care. He was just glad she was out of his life. Still, things in the neighborhood were changing. The HOA had to make big changes after all the attention the case got. People online had started calling it HOA Gone Wild, and local news kept running. Stories about other homeowners who had similar problems with strict or abusive HOA boards. A new rule was put in place. Any board member accused of misconduct would have to step down during an investigation. And every homeowner now had the right to attend meetings and vote on major decisions. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Jason found himself getting more involved. He didn't want to join the HOA board. He'd seen enough drama to last a lifetime, but he did speak up when needed. If someone got hit with an unfair fine, he helped them fight it. If a neighbor had a question about their rights, he gave them advice. People started seeing him as someone they could trust. One afternoon, a young couple moved into Barbara's old house. They introduced themselves as Alex and Mia, and they looked around nervously when they met Jason at the mailbox. "Hey," Alex said, holding out his hand. "We heard this was kind of a rough place." Jason shook his hand and laughed. "Used to be, but things are getting better." Mia smiled. "Good to hear that." They asked a few questions about the neighborhood and the HOA. Jason told them the truth. Some people were great, some weren't, but most just wanted to live peacefully. He also warned them gently. "If anyone ever gives you trouble over something, silly, don't let them push you around." They nodded, clearly grateful for the advice. Later that week, Jason got a message from someone named Linda from another town. She wrote, "I read your story online. I'm going through something similar with my HOA. They're trying to find me for having too many plants in my yard. Your story gave me courage to stand up for myself. Thank you." Jason read it twice, then replied with a simple message. "You're not alone. Keep fighting. You've got this." That same week, a reporter from a national news channel reached out. They wanted to do a follow-up story on what happened after the trial. Jason agreed, thinking maybe it could help even more people. When the story aired, it showed Jason sitting by his pool, talking about what he learned. "I used to think if I just stayed quiet and followed the rules, nobody would bother me," he said. "But sometimes being quiet isn't the answer. Sometimes you have to speak up, even if it's hard." The interview ended with Jason jumping into the pool, laughing as the cool water hit him. Back home, he checked his phone and saw messages from strangers all over the country. Some thanked him. Others shared their own HOA horror stories. One man wrote, "You made me realize I don't have to take it anymore. I filed a complaint today against my HOA for unfair treatment. Thanks for giving me the push I needed." Another message came from a woman named Tina. "My neighbor is doing the exact same thing Barbara did, messing with people's yards and threatening fines. I'm going to report her now. Hope you don't mind me borrowing your idea." Jason smiled. He didn't mind at all. Even though his life had gotten busier since the trial, he still enjoyed the little things. His weekends were filled with music, friends, and good food by the pool. He hosted barbecues again. He played games with neighbors. He even invited the new couple over for dinner. Pine Ridge Estates was starting to feel like a real community. 1. Evening, Jason sat outside with a cold drink watching the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink, and the air smelled like cut grass in summer. He thought about everything that had happened. The paint, the trial, the media attention, the way people treated him before and after, and he realized something important. He didn't change. The world around him did. Because he chose to stand up for himself, others found the strength to do the same. And that, he thought, was the best part of it all. His pool was clean. His peace was restored. And now, he was helping others find theirs. Time passed and life in Pine Ridge Estates kept getting better. Jason's pool was now the heart of the neighborhood again. Every weekend, neighbors would stop by for a swim, some music, and good conversation. Kids played in the water while adults sat nearby, laughing and sharing stories. It wasn't just Jason's pool anymore. It belonged to everyone who wanted to enjoy it. He had even set up a small sign near the gate that read, "Welcome, Please keep it clean, have fun, and treat it like your own. People respected it. The days of drama and fear were gone. In their place came a sense of trust and community that hadn't been there before. Barbara's house had been sold to a young couple with 2 kids. They were friendly and always said hello when they saw Jason walking his dog or mowing the lawn. He made sure to help them settle in, giving them tips on how to handle HOA rules without getting pushed around. One day, he overheard the wife talking to another neighbor. "I heard this used to be a really tough place," she said. "It was," the neighbor replied. "But Jason changed all that." Jason smiled to himself as he walked away. He never tried to be a hero. He just wanted peace, and ended up helping others find theirs too. The HOA board had changed as well. After Barbara left, the members realized they needed to do better. They held new elections, and people started showing real interest in making things fairer. A retired teacher named Mrs. Alvarez became the new HOA president. She believed in listening to homeowners, not bossing them around. She even invited Jason to speak at one of the meetings. "I think we can learn a lot from what happened here," she told the group. "And I believe we should make sure no one ever feels afraid or disrespected because of our rules." Jason stood up and shared his thoughts. "We all want to live in a nice neighborhood," he said. "That doesn't mean we have to give up our rights or let someone control every little thing about our lives." There was applause after he finished. Not loud, but real. People agreed. Soon after, the HOA voted to change several outdated rules, like the one about mailbox color, fence, height, and even drying laundry outside. Some fines were lowered or removed completely. Homeowners were given more say in decisions. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was moving in the right direction. Back at home, Jason found himself getting messages almost every day from people across the country. Some wrote to thank him. Others asked for advice. One man from Texas wrote, "I'm dealing with an HOA member who keeps threatening me with fines for stupid stuff. Your story gave me the courage to fight back. Thank you." Another message came from a woman in Florida. "We're starting a homeowner support group in our area. We're using your case as an example of what happens when people stand together." Jason responded to as many as he could. He even started a small blog where he shared tips on dealing with HOAs, knowing that many people out there were going through the same struggles. His story had become more than just about paint in a pool. It was now about fairness, respect, and standing up for yourself. A few months later, the local news station did a follow-up piece. They showed Jason hosting a cookout by the pool. Neighbors were gathered around, kids were playing, and soft music played from a speaker nearby. The reporter asked him how he felt now that everything was behind him. Jason thought for a second, then smiled. "I feel free," he said. "I didn't start any of this, but I'm glad I didn't stay quiet. If I had, nothing would have changed." The camera panned around the backyard, showing the happy faces, the clean pool, and the peaceful setting. Then it cut to footage of Barbara from earlier interviews. Her angry face, her sharp words, the video of her dumping paint into the water. Finally, it returned to Jason. "I learned something important," he said. "Sometimes the only way to protect your peace is to speak up, even if it's hard, even if people don't agree with you at first." He paused, then added, "Because once you do, others will too." The story aired on TV, online, and social media. Once again, Jason's name appeared in headlines. But this time, not as a victim or someone fighting alone. This time he was seen as a voice for regular people tired of being controlled by power-hungry rules. Even though he never wanted fame or attention, he accepted it with grace. He knew his story mattered, not just to him, but to others. One evening, as the sun dipped below the trees and painted the sky with warm colors, Jason sat by the pool with a cold drink in hand. His dog lay beside him, snoring softly. He looked around at the quiet beauty of his backyard, the clean water, the soft lights glowing from the trees, the peacefulness that had finally returned. He took a deep breath. Everything had changed, not because he wanted it to, but because he refused to stay silent when something was wrong. And now he was living the life he deserved. Peaceful, respected, And truly, finally, free.